I don't know who's still running accounting like it's 1957, Miles said, striding back and forth like a labradoodle high on kombucha. But this company is stepping into the future. His voice ricocheted off the glass walls of the executive conference room sharp, echoing, too confident. I was seated at the far end of the table, silently sipping coffee so weak it tasted like regret, counting how many times he'd used the word synergy. 7, 8, if you count the time he slipped it in while scratching his temple like it was a casual afterthought. His name was Miles Keegan, 28. Fresh from MIT with a startup grin and a wardrobe curated by an algorithm. The board had practically rolled out the red carpet for him, too high on disruption Kool-Aid to notice the arrogance under his tailored navy suit. Day 1, he gutted half of our executive leadership. Day 2, he brought in a small army of crypto-fueled growth consultants. Day 3, he right-sized my entire operations compliance team. A nice way of saying he cut them in half. According to Miles, AI bots and ledger automation tools could handle the grunt work, now what I used to spend 60-hour weeks refining by hand. I didn't protest. I just quietly ticked off the layoff bingo words, leaner, agile, cost-optimized, and went back to my corner office. I've been the senior controller here at TerraCore Logistics for 6 years. Before that, I was cleaning water-stained books for a Gulf Coast fisheries outfit that survived 3 hurricanes and a federal labeling investigation. I know what clean accounting looks like and what it smells like when it isn't. Lately, the ledgers had that whiff again. Not rotten, not yet, but sour. It started small. Uber rides billed as field client lunch at 11:42 p.m. A contractor invoice submitted 3 times under 3 different subsidiaries. The contractor? Just so happened to be Miles's ex-college roommate. Another week, ergonomic chairs showed up in purchase logs, but nobody received a new chair, not even HR. Each of these on their own? Explainable. An oversight? A clerical mismatch. Maybe someone double-billed by accident, but fraud doesn't announce itself with sirens. It creeps in a few digits here, a mislabel there. Soot in the vents, waiting for the wrong spark. I flagged the first few oddities to our modern accounting lead, a 24-year-old named Peyton who went viral on TikTok for explaining amortization using Minecraft blocks. He patted me on the shoulder like I was a relic and said, "You're just seeing ghosts in the data. Change is uncomfortable." Ghost. Legacy system. That's what they called me now. Not controller. Not Evelyn. Just legacy system. So I stopped flagging. I stopped caring. They stripped me of my access to financial modeling tools, took away my team, removed my logins from the budget master dashboards. But they didn't take my memory. And they sure as hell didn't know about the hard copies I'd kept in the file cabinet behind the printer no one used. 6 years' worth of signed approvals, ledger snapshots, and vendor histories. Not because I planned revenge. I'm not that dramatic. I'm just methodical. I track vacation days in color-coded spreadsheets. I calculate retirement contributions in Excel because the online ones round up too generously. I keep records. It's what I do. And lately, those records weren't lining up with the happy numbers on the quarterly dashboards. Then came the big one. Miles announced a $220 million merger with Lumaloop, some up-and-coming AI logistics platform based out of Portland. The whole office erupted in celebration. Champagne in the kitchen. Someone brought in cupcakes shaped like dollar signs. Miles got on a company-wide live stream and called it the future of movement. Meanwhile, I sat at my desk, rereading the press release, wondering what it would cost when the auditors tried to trace a line through our fiscal mirage. Because Lumaloop? Real company. But the version of us Miles was selling? That was fiction. The email came that afternoon. Please direct all pre-merger financial inquiries to our new integration coordinator, Noah. Noah. The same kid I'd trained 6 months ago. The one who once confused net of tax with net income and spilled a green smoothie into the petty cash drawer, then tried to dry the bills with a space heater. That Noah was now our point of contact for audit prep, integration coordinator. I wanted to laugh. Instead, I updated my own spreadsheets, double-checked the terms of my exit clause in the employee handbook, and waited. I knew the plane was heading toward the mountain. All I had to do was watch. The official announcement came 2 days later. Town hall meeting, live-streamed, polished to the point of absurdity. Miles stood on a stage they'd installed in the lobby just for the occasion, LED backdrop glowing behind him like a TED Talk fever dream. "We're entering a transformational partnership with LumaLoop," he said, arms wide like a preacher. "AI forward, scalable, transparent." The room clapped like synchronized seals. I sipped my stale coffee and quietly calculated how long it would take LumaLoop's auditors to find our discrepancies. If they were thorough, 3 weeks, maybe 2. Problem wasn't LumaLoop. Problem was us. Or, more specifically, the version of us that Miles had photoshopped together using buzzwords and dashboard mockups built in a sandbox environment no one audited. "Our books are immaculate," he said with a smile so bright it could blind a CPA. "No outdated practices, full digital traceability, smart ledger reconciliation." Everyone turned their heads just slightly toward me. Not long, just enough to pretend they weren't. That line, that dig, it was aimed right between my eyes. They'd forgotten. Forgotten who kept this company afloat when our last CFO disappeared mid-quarter after misreporting an entire Canadian expansion. By lunchtime, a new org chart was posted. I wasn't on it. Merger financial readiness was now a bullet point under Noah's name. His photo looked like a frat house yearbook shot dress shirt too tight, hair styled like a game show contestant. I forwarded it to my personal email, just in case legal ever needed proof of the company's sense of humor. That afternoon, he stopped by my desk. "Hey, Evelyn, just wanted to say no hard feelings," he said, holding his laptop like it might explode. "They just really want to push the whole tech-forward narrative, you know?" I nodded. "Not your fault. You're great at the, legacy workflows." There it was again. Legacy. I forced a smile. Wondered if this generation thought balance sheets reconciled themselves through vibes and pastel infographics. For the next week, meetings swirled like a storm cloud. Just not for me. Noah strutted past daily, wearing a different pair of neon sneakers each time, trailed by interns who used to ask me where the toner was. They called themselves the Merger Strike Squad. I called them the 4 Horsemen of Fiscal Doom. I got one email from Miles, short, polished, and condescending enough to make your teeth itch. "Thanks for your diligent service over the years, Evelyn. As we transition into this exciting new phase, please support Noah as needed while maintaining clear swim lanes." Swim lanes, not roles, not responsibilities. Lanes. Like I was a chlorine-soaked obstacle in a corporate triathlon. So, I did exactly what they wanted. I stayed in my lane. I answered the occasional invoice email, logged my hours, and watched quietly as Noah's transparent dashboards started spitting out reports with totals that didn't match vendor statements by margins big enough to raise SEC eyebrows. Nobody noticed. Or worse, they noticed and didn't care. Everyone was too busy printing cupcake flyers and reposting merger hashtags on LinkedIn. Meanwhile, I printed the discrepancies, color-coded, labeled, stacked neatly in a drawer labeled just in case. Then, without warning, they arrived. 4 auditors. No announcement, no smiles, just business casual armor, clipboards, and expressions like they were about to open a black box mid-flight. And just like that, the real math began. The auditors didn't knock. Didn't even make eye contact. They filed past Noah's pastel-colored merger zone signage like they were walking into a quarantined crime scene. Straight to the big glass conference room that everyone had started calling the aquarium floor-to-ceiling transparency, for better or worse. You could feel the oxygen shift. Noah greeted them with the confidence of a man who'd read half a Medium post on financial compliance. He launched into his guided tour, big hand gestures, lots of buzzwords. We're blockchain adjacent, fully smart migrated, legacy free. He air-quoted paper trail like it was a Bigfoot myth. The lead auditor, a woman in her mid-50s with silver-streaked hair and eyes like polished granite, said her name was Marlene. She didn't smile. She asked for the raw exports. Noah blinked, stumbled, offered a slideshow instead. Wrong answer. By lunch, Marlene's team had uncovered 3 different sets of financial records, none of which matched. The primary ledger showed one January total. The tax prep files showed another. And the deprecated cloud database, the one Miles had supposedly decommissioned but forgot to fully kill, showed a third. The differences weren't pennies. We're talking 5-figure gaps. Meal expenses overstated by $1,700. Hotel invoices with no matching check-ins. Flights billed to employees who'd quit last year. In one case, to someone who never worked here at all. Still, no alarms. Miles walked around that day like he was hosting a garden party, grinning, nodding, winking at employees with his usual coked-up enthusiasm. "Audit speed bumps, nothing major," I heard him say near the break room. Then he vanished into his office for 3 hours. By the time he emerged, the grin was gone. The next day, my inbox lit up. Not from Miles, not even from Noah, from Noah's interns. Carefully worded, passive-aggressive gems like, "Hey Evelyn, super quick Q. Do you remember how vendor reimbursements were tagged back in FY20? Just curious. Hi. Any chance you have access to travel logs from Q3 2021? Few things missing on our end. Do you recall what code P4 means?" Noah thinks it's for group offsites, but something feels off. Yes, I remembered. Code P4 was what I used for team lunches capped at $75 per person before Miles raised the limit and cut all manager-level approvals. That's when things got creative. $400 sushi team bonding meals for 2 people. Marriott Suites billed as vendor meetups with no vendors in sight. I didn't respond. I printed, filed, labeled. By Thursday, the tension was thick enough to carve. People started whispering in corners. Someone said Marlene had requested every receipt over 50s going back 18 months. Another claimed Miles was spotted arguing with the general counsel in the parking lot. Then Noah stopped by my desk again, no laptop this time. Just sweaty palms and forced optimism. "Evelyn," he said, too chipper, "we'd love to loop you into a quick review of the legacy ledgers. Just to cross-reference a few things." Legacy again. Always that word. I looked up slowly. "I'm sure you've got it covered," I said calmly. "After all, you're the merger lead now." His smile twitched. His eye did too. It was the same look interns used to give me when they accidentally deleted a budget file and tried to bluff their way through. More inconsistencies showed up by the hour. Weekend meal claims that didn't match swipe card logs. Flights to San Francisco listed under recon trip with one-way bookings to Cabo. And then came the shell vendors. Invoices just under the $10,000 threshold that triggered second-level approval. Same format, same typos, same Delaware P.O. box, different names. Lux North, LN Group, Luxon Holdings. All processed within 3 weeks. None of it conclusive on its own. But you didn't need a smoking gun when the entire room reeked of smoke. The aquarium's glass walls were now fogged. Marlene's team barely left the room. The whispers turned into silence. Legal started showing up early. The storm wasn't coming. It was already here. By Monday, the glass walls of the aquarium looked like a fish tank that hadn't been cleaned in weeks, foggy from stress, handprints, and too many back-to-back panic meetings. Inside, Marlene and her audit team hadn't stopped for 4 days. You could smell the pressure now, the mix of burnt nerves, stale coffee, and corporate deodorant. like fear trying to stay professional. That morning, the CFO from Lumaloop arrived. A woman in her 60s, cardigan and pearls, with glasses on a gold chain, and the voice of someone who had seen billion-dollar dreams die in ugly decimal points. I didn't hear her full conversation, but I heard the most important sentence. You don't push through a $250 million integration with shadows on your ledgers. The door shut before I could catch Miles's response. Later, I saw Noah in the hallway, face pale, his sneakers no longer bouncing. He looked like he was trying to breathe through a paper bag, or a lawsuit. By then, word had spread. The dashboards? Incomplete. Receipts? Inconsistent. And the SmartSync reports they'd bragged about? Showing gaps up to $25,000 per quarter. Entire weeks listed as pending reconciliation, just placeholders where real numbers should have lived. One intern summed it up perfectly. It's like someone tried to build a skyscraper out of spaghetti code and crossed fingers. And still, no one came to me. Not directly, but the whispers got closer. One of the junior auditors caught me by the vending machine. Hey, are you Evelyn? I nodded. Were you around when they used something called Ledger Vault? Before they switched to AutoTrack? Yeah. She glanced around like we were trading classified secrets. Would there be backup data? I smiled. There's always backup, if you know where to look. She blinked, then nodded slowly the way people do when they realize they're standing on a fault line. That afternoon, another status meeting happened not in the open lobby this time, but 2 doors deep behind legal counsel. My phone buzzed 10 minutes later. Noah again. Hey, Evelyn, wondering if you could swing by later. Just a few anomalies to go over. Would really help to get your perspective. Anomalies. That's what he called them now. Cute. I didn't reply. That night, I stayed late not to help, just to listen. I sat in my cube, lights off, finalizing the month-end close for a system they'd nearly forgotten existed, and overheard Miles pacing in the hallway outside the aquarium. She's not even part of the project anymore, he hissed. A woman's voice responded calm, clipped. Be that as it may, she's the only one who's been here longer than the dysfunction. Then another voice, male, nervous. I think we need to loop her in. She might know where the old approvals are buried. I leaned back, stared at the blank screen in front of me. There it was. My name, finally on the table. Not because they respected me. Not because they wanted me back. Because they were out of lifeboats. And the only person who knew where the real exits were had been labeled legacy and shoved into the background months ago. I didn't feel smug. I felt ready. I had 6 years of reconciliations, audit trails, old approval chains, and the email where I'd once warned them about invoice duplication. They ignored it all. Buried it under buzzwords and bonus announcements. But I kept the dirt clean. So when the invite hit my calendar the next morning, titled simply Sync / Evelyn, I accepted. No questions, no clarifications. They were calling in the cavalry. Too bad I'd already packed the receipts. They made me wait. Not long, just enough to remind me this wasn't my meeting. I was the afterthought, the backup generator they didn't know they needed until the lights started flickering. The invite said 10 a.m. At 10:26, Noah finally opened the aquarium door, smile tight, voice too bright. Evelyn, so glad you could make it. The conference room stank of burnt coffee, recycled air, and stress. Miles stood near the head of the table, sleeves rolled up, trying to look hands-on. He didn't make eye contact, too busy tracking every blink from the audit team, 5 of them now, including Marlene. Legal was in the corner, typing fast enough to warp keys. Evelyn, Miles began, faux casual. We thought it would be helpful to get your perspective, given your history here. He gestured to the empty chair beside Marlene. Think of this as a chance to revisit some of those traditional workflows you're so familiar with. There it was, draped in condescension, gift wrapped in fake gratitude. I sat down without a word, opened my leather-bound notebook, and let it thump against the table. "I'll need raw data access," I said. "Not dashboards. Full logs, line-by-line exports, from both AutoTrack and LedgerVault." Marlene slid over a flash drive, already prepped. "You'll find discrepancies." "I'm counting on it," I replied, plugging it into the laptop Noah reluctantly pushed over. They all watched me like I was about to perform surgery on a corpse they'd tried to keep smiling with makeup and duct tape. 6 minutes in, I found the first vein. Same vendor, different spellings. Lux Group, Luxent, GRP, Luxent Group, LLC, Luxent. All billed in a 3-week window. All under $10,000, just below the threshold, requiring second-level approval. All labeled strategic outreach. No receipts, no meeting invites, no client notes. I kept scrolling. 2,100 dinner at a steakhouse billed on a Saturday. 6 guests claimed. Only 2 had badged into the building that weekend. I had the keycard logs from the system they thought was decommissioned. Then a one-way flight to Cabo, listed as a market research trip to San Francisco. This wasn't sloppy. This was surgical. And Miles? He didn't have the spine to ask where the bodies were buried. He just wanted the headlines. I looked up. "You want this cleaned up or exposed?" I asked. Marlene blinked. "Define the difference." "Cleaned up means I give you the patterns, the gaps, the routing mismatches, and you quietly plug the holes before LumaLoop walks. Exposed means I give you everything itemized, cross-referenced, personal benefit logs, and we walk it into federal compliance and let them sort it out." Miles made a noise halfway between a cough and a whimper. "Isn't that a little dramatic?" I didn't even flinch. What's dramatic is billing personal trips to Aruba as vendor relations while claiming meal reimbursements in 3 states at once. Marlene's eyebrow ticked upward. "You found that in 15 minutes?" "No," I said, closing the laptop with a soft snap. "I found it 3 months ago. I just wasn't paid to care." Silence, the kind that rattles light fixtures. I folded my hands. "This is your show," I told Miles, voice steady. "But you hired the wrong understudy and wrote the wrong script." He didn't speak. Neither did Noah. Even legal had paused typing. And then, quietly, from the corner seat, the softest voice in the room cleared his throat. "Elliot. Gray hair. Audit veteran. The kind of man who kept a calculator watch and made it look menacing." He pulled a beige napkin from his pocket, flattened it, started writing. Not on a laptop, not in Excel. By hand. Numbers, vendor names, dates, totals, arrows, circles, deductions, real math. No flair, just quiet, deliberate autopsy notes. Because at this point, he wasn't auditing a company. He was charting the cause of death. Elliot's pen moved slowly, methodically. Every stroke deliberate. No muttering, no drama. Just math. The room stayed dead quiet, the kind of quiet you get in courtrooms before sentencing. After a full minute, he capped the pen, pushed his chair back just slightly, and slid the napkin down the polished conference table. It came to a stop in front of Miles like a fuse without a sound. Miles didn't move, didn't reach for it, just stared at the napkin like it was about to bite him. Then, slowly, reluctantly, he stepped forward. His eyes twitched left to right, scanning the circles, arrows, and red flags outlined in blue ink. Near the center, one number was triple circled. Beneath it, a single word, underlined. Exposure. Marlene spoke gently, almost kindly. This figure, if not filed as executive compensation or properly disclosed as a liability, becomes both taxable and criminal if deducted under false vendor names. She looked over at legal. They weren't typing anymore, just frozen, staring at the napkin like it was written in fire. "This isn't a footnote," Marlene continued. It reshapes the company's entire balance sheet. It distorts EBITDA, poisons valuation, and if these shell vendors tie back to any current officers qualifies as willful concealment. Noah coughed. No one acknowledged him. Miles opened his mouth. Nothing came out but a weak exhale. He looked like a man realizing his parachute was a backpack. I didn't gloat, didn't smile, just watched. That napkin? That was the funeral program for his merger. All the jargon, all the dashboards, all the press releases undone by overpriced steak dinners, and a fraud pattern so lazy it thought Excel wouldn't notice. "Can this be fixed?" Miles finally whispered. Elliot didn't respond. Neither did Marlene. Instead, she turned to me. "Did you track this across time?" 16 months, I said. Every flagged charge, every misspelled vendor, every itinerary that didn't line up. "Do you have documentation?" "In triplicate," I said, without blinking. For the first time since I entered the room, Miles looked directly at me, eyes wide, desperate. "Why didn't you say anything?" "I did," I replied. "You called it resistance to innovation." The temperature in the room dropped a few degrees. I could hear the buzz of fluorescent lights. Far off in the hallway, I could make out the soft murmurs of the merger team still pretending nothing was wrong. But in here, the collapse had already begun. "I didn't know those vendors were still active," Miles stammered, grabbing the back of his chair like it might keep him standing. "Legal told me they were dissolved. Legal didn't say anything." Two of them huddled over a screen, whispering words like material misstatement, retroactive exposure, whistleblower clause. One muttered mandatory SEC disclosure like it was poison. Marlene stood slowly. "We're halting our portion of the audit," she announced. "This is beyond reconciliation. We're filing preliminary findings with our client's legal team and recommending a forensic investigation." "You don't have to do that," Miles tried. "We do," Elliot cut in, eyes still locked on the napkin. "We don't clean messes. We document them." Noah looked like he was about to crawl under the table. I watched him reach for his phone, hesitate, then tuck it away again like it couldn't save him anymore. The interns? Frozen. Their eyes wide, their dreams of LinkedIn stardom evaporating. And me? I started packing my bag. No announcements, no speeches. Just unplugged the laptop, slid my notebook inside, and stood up. The cleanup wasn't my job anymore. They had attorneys for that, and a PR team already bracing for technical delays in merger finalization. Behind me, I could hear Marlene calmly outlining next steps. Miles sank into his chair. The same hands that once waved away policy audits were now trembling just to hold a pen. That napkin, stained, creased, brutal in its simplicity, sat in front of him like a verdict. Miles didn't move, still clutching the napkin like it might dissolve if he stared hard enough. But it wouldn't. That number circled in blue, bold and damning, was going to outlive every press release they'd drafted. I walked out without looking back. Not with revenge, not with rage, just with receipts. And a resignation plan 3 months in the making. I was halfway through the parking garage, heels echoing against concrete, bag over my shoulder when I heard it. "Evelyn!" Fast footsteps. Too fast for PR. Too panicked for HR. It was Meredith, our in-house counsel. Usually composed, hair in a tight knot, voice like a PowerPoint slide. But today, she looked cracked around the edges, clutching a legal pad like a life raft. "Can we talk?" she asked, catching her breath. I didn't answer, just waited. "Listen, legal has reviewed the merger documentation," she began, "and it appears your previous role was listed under the transitional continuity clause." I said nothing. "Let her dig, which means you're technically pre-cleared as a consultant in the event of Data instability. You're experiencing data instability? I asked, dry. She nodded, sheepish. Your records, the ones you kept, are the only clean framework left that predates the inconsistencies. If we want any shot at salvaging the Luma Loop deal, we need you to walk their compliance team through your version of the books. I let that sit. Then she added, quickly, with compensation, substantial compensation, full autonomy, 12-month engagement, triple your last salary, no reporting line to Miles, and a retroactive NDA buyout on your termination clause. There it was, the corporate world turning on its axis in a single breath. I nodded slowly. Put it in writing. Already drafted, she said, holding out a sealed envelope like it might burn her hand. Signable by end of day. I took it. No handshake, no smile, just silence. Back inside, the aquarium had turned into a war room. Marlene's team was boxing up records. Legal looked like they were preparing for depositions. Miles? Still standing at the whiteboard mute, paralyzed holding that same damn napkin. He didn't notice me pass by. Didn't hear the whispering interns. Resignation packages, SEC notice windows. Clause 302, exposure. I slipped into a smaller conference room, shut the door, and read every line of the contract. Clauses, protections, indemnities, liaison authority, direct access to Luma Loop's CFO, respect. The kind of offer I'd spent my entire career being told I was too rigid or too traditional to deserve. I signed it with my own pen, and as I left the room, I paused just long enough to glance back through the aquarium glass. Miles was still there, still holding the napkin. The ink now smudged by sweat. Staring. Like if he looked long enough, maybe the numbers would change. But they wouldn't. The ink was permanent. The consequences were too. Outside, the hallway buzzed. Phones vibrated. Voices whispered things like financial restatement risk and forensic audit timeline. No one dared open the aquarium door. I walked slowly, not to savor it though, maybe I did, but because there was no rush. Let them burn. I'd already packed my parachute. I was almost to my car when Meredith caught up again this time, walking, not running. You're just going to walk away? She asked. I stopped. I was never invited, I said without turning around. They didn't want my oversight. They wanted a fairy tale. I held up the envelope. Now they've got receipts instead. As I drove away, I thought about all the times they called me outdated. Legacy system. Dead weight. Turns out, the only person who kept the books alive was the one they pushed out. Now they'd pay to bring her back. Not because she was loud, not because she was liked, but because she was right.